Okay, guys, gals, welcome to another speaker series. All right, here we go. All right, everybody, welcome to the last of this particular series, the Summit Series, brought to you by Stonehaus. Those of you that have joined us for the past speakers, you've known we've had some amazing speakers, everybody from Mike Ferry to Amy Youngren out in Toronto, producers that are doing 400 transactions a year. It's been crazy and an awesome learning experience. I hope a lot of you have had an opportunity to take away some good, valuable information over this time. But today, there's a reason why we put this gentleman last, and it's because he's probably the most relevant out of all of them that we've had on. So not only is Phil Moore, the ex-president, which I like to call him El Presidente, of the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board, he is also currently a director on CREA. So now he's taking care of the entire country, not just Vancouver itself. He's an organization head of many different charities. And on top of that, and we're going to dive into it, he's been a top producer with his wife and partner, Doris G, for ages, top 1% agent. He's been able to amass an amazing, we're going to get into that a little bit too, real estate portfolio. So he's been able to amass some amazing wealth during this time as well. Yeah, so let's get this started. Phil, you there?
You bet. Can you hear me now?
I definitely can hear you now. Can everybody else hear you?
So, why don't I start by acknowledging everyone that's on this Zoom call. It's pretty amazing that you're taking time out of your day. It kind of reminds me, and I'm going to take you back to a story of two guys walking along a beach in 346 BC. The older man, he was the mentor for the younger fella. They were walking along this beach in Greece, and the older fella said to Socrates said to the younger fella, Plato, he said to Plato that there are three stages of life. There is growth, stability, and decay. And everything in life, energy, everything in life is in three stages: growth, stability, decay. And Plato looked at this log on the beach and he said to Socrates, no, I don't really agree with you. When that tree was living, it was in a period of growth. As soon as it was cut down, it's now in a period of decay. So there's no such thing as stability. And we look at our marriages, and there's no such thing as a stable marriage. Marriages work, and Sean's laughing. Real estate, I just want to get stable. There's no such thing as stability in real estate. We've seen it. Life happens. So I got to acknowledge you guys for taking this on and recognize that we're always either, if we're not learning and growing, then we're decaying, and nobody wants to decay. So thanks for having me. I've jumped in on some of the calls as a guest just to learn and grow, just like you guys. So hopefully I can bring some value.
100%. That I'm 100% sure of you're going to be able to do. And for those of you know, this is a big thanks and shout out to Phil as well. You've always supported every single event we've ever asked you to be a part of. So thank you again for that. It means a lot to us. But let's start diving into the questions because I know we got some good ones here. So let's start from the very beginning. When did you start real estate and how long have you been in real estate?
So even before you look at how long you've been a realtor, I believe that you are who you are because of your childhood. In fact, from age 0 to 4, we learn 50% of everything we learn in life. By age 12, we've actually learned 75% of everything we're going to learn. So where I came from wasn't prosperity. It was actually poverty. I'm the oldest boy out of 6 kids. And we had a 3-bedroom house in East Vancouver at 19th and Main. And luckily, we had a bungalow that had an unfinished basement. So being the oldest boy, guess who got the basement? I slept on a wooden floor, maybe a piece of foam, and a sleeping bag for the first 13 years of my life almost. I hate camping. And I can tell you probably because I was camping for the first 13 years. I didn't get a bed until age 13. I grew up, my parents made ends meet. They thought it was important that to send the kids to Catholic school. So there I was at St. Pat's at 12th and Main. After grade 9, going into grade 10, there was 5 boys. 4 of them were leaving for public school, and I would have been the only boy in the class. And so I went to public school with the 5, and I went to Sir Charles Tupper. It's 1970s. A Catholic boys coming to Tupper. It was a rough school. We fought every day. We fought to survive. We fought to get respect. It's amazing that 4 out of those 5 boys that left the Catholic school became cops. And so I became a cop. By the way, the other one guy was Paul Eviston, and he became a realtor. So I went off to be a cop, and he became a realtor. We're all from St. Pat's. You know, I finished high school, and I wanted to be successful. And I didn't want to grow up being poor. And I was tired of being poor. So the police department gave me an opportunity where I could enroll them into hiring me at 19. So August 10th, 1980, on my birthday, I was sworn in as a Vancouver police officer. At 18 years old, I faced a panel of 10. Well, first it was 6, but then they'd come and go. But 6 senior police officers who interviewed me. And I can tell you what I sold them. I'm going to hold it right here. They bought my bullshit. And I should have known that I was a salesman when I was applying to be a cop at 18. Now, I bought this back. This is another long story why I bought my bullshit back. But I sold them on myself at 18. So at 19, I'm sworn in as a Vancouver police officer. And the reason I went that route is because I wanted a stable job and I wanted to make money right away. Fast forward, August is a big year for me. August 8th, 1989, I leave the police department and I get 1 year. I know that's a long answer to your question.
Awesome. All right. So let's reflect back, because obviously now you're you endorse our top 1% team. You guys kill it in the real estate side. What was like your first years when you transitioned from being a police officer to a realtor? What was your first years like? Were you right out of the gate killing it, or was it a slow build? What was that?
Here's an interesting model. I joined Realty World in 1989, in August the 8th. And it's a 50-50 split. And that's the way real estate was. And when I joined, they told me that I was going to get a geographical farm. And they gave me a geographical farm. I chose the geographical farm closest to the office so I could save money on gas. So I chose a farm that was basically at Imperial and Sussex. Then they turned around and they gave me a newsletter with my picture on it. So now I've got a newsletter with Realty World, my picture, a little story, and on the back of it is all the Realty World listings. I don't have the money to send this out through Canada Post, so I got to start door knocking. Literally in my first week, I take off to the start of my farm at Imperial and Sussex, and I go down Sussex, I cross Victory Street, and I start to come up to Dow, 7170 Dow. I knock on the door. Hi, I'm Phil Moore from Realty World. I just wanted to drop off my newsletter, my monthly newsletter. The guy grabbed the newsletter and he says, I want to thank you for giving us this newsletter for years. It is my first newsletter. But someone else had been farming that area. Someone had been giving a Realty World newsletter for months, maybe years, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years. And he said, you know, I'm thinking about selling. Would you like to come in? Well, in I went. I happened to be so positive thinking that I carried a listing in my pocket. No CMA, no idea what the place was worth. And I said to him, I said, what price are you thinking? And he said, 300,000. Sure. Press hard, there's 5 copies. I get back to the office. I got my first listing. It's my first day of door knocking. I'm loving this. And then I run the computer and I go, oh my God, this is overpriced. It didn't matter to me. A week later, a realtor by the name of Bert Perronte brings me an offer. And it's old school. I go in the house with Bert. He sits down. I'm new. I sit there and I watch Bert Perronte grind these guys from 300,000 to accept an offer for 255,000. Closings in 30 days. There I am with my first paycheck on the 25th of September. Why? Because I really needed to. I didn't have any savings. How I got there in policing was in 1986, I was undercover. It was Expo. We could have went out and enjoyed Expo. But we went out and we arrested people. We did impaired driving. We did drugs. We did vice. We did 2 or 3 arrests a day. In 87, they all went to court. In 88, I'm in the newspaper with my partner as being paid more than the chief of police. The chief of police and taxpayers, they didn't like that. So I get called into the chief's office in 1988, and he said some profound words. He said, "You're making people's misfortune your fortune. If it's all about money, go into real estate." And me and my partner looked at us, and the chief is telling us to go into real estate. So we went into real estate, 1989. The funny thing about the police department is that anytime you leave, you can come back with no questions asked for 1 year. And we felt good policing when people left and came back. Wow, did you see Bob Jones? He quit. Now he's back. There isn't no better job than this. We better stay here. And we all felt good when guys left and came back. So I'm leaving. I passed the real estate course. There's no need to give 2 weeks notice. It takes them 3 years to train a police officer. They come to my locker, and now they're doing inventory. So they're doing inventory, my gun, my badge, my shoes, my hat, everything. They're going to put a special lock on my locker, and I can come back 1 year with no questions asked. Same uniform, hopefully it fits, same seniority, everything. They go to do the inventory, and they go, "Phil, where are your police shirts?" Well, I was working on a Main and Hastings, 312 Main. I walked 1 block to the north. I crossed the street. I went into this building that was kind of orange, and I seen these ladies that could use some clothing. So I gave them my police shirts, and that was it. They weren't taking me back. I had to burn my bridges so that I had to be successful. You know, for the agents that are in this business part-time, I would say that this is the best time to jump in and become a full-time agent. It's going to get busy. And if you leave, don't worry. It will happen for you. You have to believe. What the mind of the man can believe and conceive, it can achieve, or to think is to create. So I had to be successful because I had nothing to fall back on, and I had no money. So it was my driving force, and I grew up in poverty.
So when you look back, your back was definitely against the wall, and you were forced to actually be a success if we look at it that way. But so you mentioned a little bit of the door knocking, right? Do you feel the stuff like that old school style stuff? We'll use the old school because a lot of people still do it, but the old school style stuff that you did at the beginning 31 years ago, is that still applicable for agents today?
So here's a little story. You know, I was door knocking my farm, and I was door knocking for 10 hours a day. Then I partnered up with some people in the office and decided to hit expiries. And in fact, I grabbed Doris and we started to hit expiries. It's 1989, 1990. Bob Rainey has everything in Burnaby listed. Bob Rainey also has everything in Burnaby expiring. He always let things expire so that they could call him and beg him to come back. So then we'd knock on the door and we'd say, "You know what? I notice your house is off the market. It's expired now. In case we have a buyer, is it possible we could preview your house? Could we see the inside?" And they're proud of their house, so they take us through the house. We'd be taking notes, and then we'd sit down at the coffee table, and that's it. We'd go for the close. Their listing's expired. They want to sell. They were on the market. Let's close them. And every one of Bob Rainey's list expiries said the same thing, and I'll never forget it. They would go, "Oh no, we could never list with anyone other than Bob. He's our friend. And I thought to myself, how does this guy have thousands and thousands of friends? Like, how does he do it? And so what Bob Rennie did really, really well is he didn't communicate. He connected. He connected to them. And I started to study. I never followed any Joe Stump or any of these top producing guys. I did get into PSI seminars and studied EQ, emotionally intelligence. And I started to understand different personality traits. And so really, when I go into a house, I'm going to process the client, and I'm going to put them in one of four baskets, either a controller, an analyst, a supporter, or a promoter. And I'm going to gear my presentation towards their personality. First, I had to discover that I was a controller. And being a controller doesn't make a good realtor. Now it says you're muted by the host. Did I get muted?
No, you're not muted. You're good. You're good.
So you've got these four quadrants, four different personalities. Actually, the supporter, the predominant behavioral trait of a supporter, a counselor or a teacher, those people, their main goal is to help people. Those make the best realtors. Okay? And generally speaking, they're women. Women are much better listeners than men. Women are much more enthusiastic about the property than men. I had a personality trait where I had a need to be right. You know what? I lost a lot of listings, but God damn it, it sold for the price I told them. I was right. Did right pay? No. And so I had to really change my personality, being an ex-cop, now an ex-cop, into understanding people, understanding their needs, listening, and being more open to connect with them on a different level. So a lot of times I will sit there and wonder how I can connect with this person on a different level. I'll give you an example. It was a Monday night, and Monday night I like to watch NFL football. There's a football game in, I got a call, and 3 times during the call, the guy asked me if the market evaluation was free. It was pretty clear he had somebody in mind to list his property with. When I got there at 8 p.m., his wife wasn't even there. This is a waste. I'm getting used for an evaluation. So, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to make the best of it. I gave the guy a presentation. I gave him the price. And then I sat there 45 minutes later and I said, you know, I'll just give it a little longer. I wonder what we have in common. I said, do you mind? Like, so what do you do for a living? And he's a land surveyor. Okay. That's a tricky one. What do I have in common with a land surveyor? I said, you know, if you don't mind me asking, because your wife's here, it's 8 o'clock at night and she's at work. What does your wife do for a living? Well, she's a high school principal. That was it. Okay. That's awesome. I understand her long hours. You know, we have a nonprofit society and we work with youth at risk, mostly Templeton High School. So we work with underprivileged youth and we work with a boys club. I also created a nonprofit society called Camp Choice, where we have a leadership camp once a year for a week in Zajac Ranch. And all of a sudden I just started to tell the guy the story about my work with youth. Then we wrapped it up. The next morning I get a call and he said, Phil, I told my wife about you. And you know, we were going to list with another realtor that's in West Vancouver because he's kind of like a friend. But my wife wants to meet you. She's really interested in the work that you do with youth. And that was trying to figure out for 10 or 15 minutes how I could connect with this individual on a different level rather than just business. And that's why I think women are such good realtors, because they're great listeners.
It's awesome. Yeah, and I agree. Listening is one of the tasks that's harder to do than speaking half the time, right? So, okay, let's kind of dive into a little bit of your business. So most of your business, and correct me if I'm wrong, is on a referral base now, right? How do you maintain and manage that business that you guys have built?
No difference than you're trying to build business now. It's personal touches. So, you know, in 2008, financial crisis, it got really slow. And it was an interesting time and a challenging time for me as well. And I actually just reached out to past clients and I was authentic. I said, you know, Sean, it's really slow right now for me in real estate. And even though I've been in this for 31 years, I'm struggling right now. And you know, I could really use your help. Can you imagine someone asking for help? I could use your help, Sean. And if you know of anyone that's thinking of selling or buying, you know, if you could refer them to me, you know, I made 10 calls and got 2 listings in the first day because I was able to ask. I was just real. It was tough. Right now, it's been a challenging 8 weeks. I have 15 listings. I'd like to have 30. I'm going to go out and try to get listings. And so I don't think it's any different than someone new in the business or someone been in the business 31 years. You need to make touches, and I count my touches. I've got to make a minimum of 10 and on a good day 20 touches. So that means that I've got to find people to call and to connect with. And when I connect with them, I try to really connect with them. So that's why I'm sitting at around 10 or 15 or 20 a day. Right now, I can tell you, you know, I'm sitting at my home in Burnaby. I haven't had a real estate flyer. I haven't had any real estate junk mail since almost the end of February. We're habits of creatures. We're saving our money. My advice to you is to start spending money now. I just sent out 75,000 notepads. I believe in the next week that I'm going to get 10 to 15 CMAs. I think the market's going to turn June 1st. I send out expiries every 2 months. I always do them at the end of the month because number one, listings are expiring. Number two, tenants are giving notice to the landlord. So when your junk mail arrives, it has to arrive. It's best to arrive at the end of the month. I also like Wednesdays because it seems to get more traction on a Wednesday. On a Friday, people can take it and chuck it. So here I am 31 years later. I'm still doing sold cards. I'm still doing notepads. The reason I like notepads is there's 30 pages. I buy them in bulk. I buy them for about 11 cents a notepad. The mailman delivers them under my contract for 10 cents, 21 cents, and I'm covering Burnaby. That's my farm area. The other thing is, and I've heard it being described as be the mayor in your area, be the mayor in your city. Someone also called me the rock star in the city. Everything that I do is in Burnaby. So the church that I go to is in Burnaby. The restaurants I go to are in Burnaby. The stores I go to are in Burnaby. The gym I go to is in Burnaby. Everything's in my farm. Now, I like restaurants downtown. I like Black and Blue, and I like those expensive restaurants, but I'll support my local restaurants. I will be in Burnaby where I'm recognized. And so I farm geographical, I farm my church, I farm my gym, I farm my neighborhood, but everything I do is here in Burnaby. And that's when I get recognized. So it's a brand awareness. An interesting concept in 1990, when I was going to leave Realty World, I interviewed 2 companies, Remax and Rennie and Associates. And I was told by Bob Rennie that when you made a sale, that his office would send out a sold card. And I thought, wow, that's great. You know, you're going to send out a sold card, you know, every time I make a sale for free? No, not exactly. You're paying for it, Phil. And you don't have a say. The sold card is going out. So what Bob Rennie was doing, every single time an agent made a sale, a Rennie and Associate card went out in the mail. That was building brand awareness. If you could take your agents at Stonehaus and encourage them or empower them to send out a sold card, a sold flyer, it makes it easier for the whole office. It's brand recognition. And that's how you're going to build your brand. And it's an interesting policy because we had no say. He was going to do it for you. And so I still have that philosophy. The only difference with me is when I make a sale, I wait to get a few sales in one area, and I don't do the mail walk. I do the whole postal walk. I do 10,000 sold cards because and I usually try to have 2 or 3 solds. So am I reinventing the wheel? I don't need to. These things work. Notepads work. Sold cards work. I don't do the just listed, but they work too.
And your sold cards, so those end up usually going out once a month, give or take, as well then? Or what's the frequency of the mailouts?
So it really depends on the neighborhood. I've got another farm in Buckingham Heights, and I do a newsletter there, and that goes out every 2 months. The sold cards is when I can get 2 or 3 or 4 sold. So I want to wow them. I want to give them a condo and a house. So it's when I have a condo and a house minimum in that postal walk. Let's say Brentwood Mall. I just had a sale in Brentwood. So I used the house in Brentwood and I used a condo in Brentwood. And I sent that out. I happened to send that out just last week, just to try to test the market to see what kind of calls. The first day that it arrived, we got 3 evaluations. And you want to be doing things that nobody's doing right now. Nobody's spending money right now. Everybody's cautious. You don't want to walk in the office and listen to doom and gloom. You want to surround yourself with really positive people. With some of the youth camps we do positive affirmations. And I still do positive affirmations. If I go into a listing presentation, before I go into the listing presentation, I say to myself, I'm going to get this listing. I say positive things to myself because we talk to ourselves and say 69,000 words every day. We write a book, so check in. What are those thoughts? Are they negative or they're positive? Your positive thoughts always have to outweigh your negative thoughts. The other thing I do a lot of visionary work. So let me give you a neat story about visionary work. I'm at the hockey game. It's the opening of the Canucks, and Luc Bourdon had been killed in a car accident the summer. And the lady, the last game of his season, you win the jersey off someone's back. This lady comes out on center ice, and she had won Luc Bourdon's jersey, his game-worn jersey, his last jersey he ever wore. She brought that out on center ice to give it to Luc Bourdon's mother and fiance. And I sat there and go, wow, what an act of kindness. Wow, was that ever the right thing to do? And I said to myself, when I win the 50-50, not if, but when I win the 50-50 at the Canuck game, I'm going to go out on center ice with my kids and I'm going to give back. I'm going to give them a big fat check. Well, there's the check, $5,000. I visualized it. I visualized winning. I was the first person that won a 50-50 and gave $25,000 back. And people went, Phil, that's amazing. Like, you won the 50-50 and you gave it all back. Well, not exactly. I won the largest 50-50. If you're going to win big. I won $169,828. At the time was the largest 50-50. And I believe that I won it because I had a vision of giving back a large portion. And there's a movie called The Secret, and he talks about the mind of the brain and visualizing it. Tiger Woods puts in a 17-foot putt, and they go, Tiger, that was an amazing shot. Like how did it feel? No, Tiger Woods did it 1,000 times in his brain. So surround yourself with positive people and visualize those wins.
I think that's huge. And if you've looked at a lot of the speakers that we've had, they've all been incredibly positive. They've all gone through downs and ups and everything. It's not like life is easy by any means, even if you're positive. But the only time you ever get out of that, it seems to be, is having the positivity, right? And that's something that you've definitely carried along. So my questions are blowing up here. A couple people about your expired program as well as your mailouts. So it's very specific to Burnaby. We got that. Now you mentioned that you're doing the expireds every 2 months or twice a month. Sorry, I missed that.
So I'm doing notepads every 2 months, or every 2 months to the entire Burnaby. I like my junk mail, my ad mail, to land on people's doorstep at the end of a month. It's funny and it's strategic. Phil, my listing just expired last night and I got your notepad. I got your card. When I was working expireds, I would create a list and I'd go knock on their door or I'd go phone them. Now, what I started to find is everyone started to work expireds, the same people. So then I went back 6 months and I started to work the expiries that were 6 months ago. I can tell you right now, we are sitting less than 10,000 listings. This time last year, we had 15,000. There's 5,000 homeowners that have a need to list their house, want to list their house. We just got to find them. And some of those came off the market. They came off the market on December the 31st. They were told, the spring is the best market. Now, COVID-19 came along and they weren't able to list. Those ones that expired in October, November, and December are going to come on in the next 6 months, in the next few months, because they have a need to sell. And they may even have a need to sell more than normal because of the way the circumstances have been. When I worked expireds, I worked the expireds every day. When I send out mailouts, especially 75,000 notepads, it's every 2 months. I have done every month. When I want to get business, I'll do it every month.
And so with these flyers and your marketing, are you outsourcing those? Are those in-house? Are you doing it yourself? Or do you have an assistant that does it? Do you use a specific company?
So I have tried to stick to one rule, and that's touch paper once. I like to just touch the paper once. So I have an assistant to do all the paperwork. There's myself and Doris, and we have one administrative assistant, and she's told what to do in order to get us business. Sometimes you set up your assistant's day, setting up her day so that she's really busy, and then she's making you busy. As far as pulling out the expiries and sending them a letter, she does all of that. If it's a matter of picking up the phone or a matter of door knocking, right now, door knocking is a little tricky because people are scared to open up the doors. So that's a little bit challenging. But I know there's companies out there that are cold calling between 2 and 4 every afternoon. I mean, I'm fortunate enough now where the calls come to me.
Right, and that's from times, years and years of you prospecting, obviously, and good customer service has come back and it's given to you. So you touched on a little bit, I'm going to kind of get back into a little bit more about your business afterwards, but you already mentioned it, so I figured might as well kind of skip around a few of my questions here. So being a director of Korea, obviously the president of the board, and everything you say, I'm just going to preface it, this is your opinion, not necessarily the board's or Korea's, so I'm just going to make that clear. But what do you feel like we're getting into in the season of Corona? It seems like we're kind of getting out of it. You mentioned June 1st as well. But what do you feel like we should be prepping for? What should agents be doing right now to make sure that we're super busy or even getting busier in the future?
So in the last 8 weeks, you had an opportunity to really look at what was working in your business plan and for setting up systems when we turn this light switch back on. I think the light switch is going back on June 1st. I'm hoping that the board opens up open houses. Open houses is a signal to the community that we are back in business. Right now, we're averaging 70 sales at the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver, 70 sales per day, per business day. Based on the 10-year average, that's down 58%. Based upon the 2019 statistics, it's down 44%. We haven't had a decline in prices. Why? Because we haven't had the inventory come on. Our inventory is sitting a little bit less than 10,000 listings. In 2012, there was over 17,835 listings on the market in May. When we had a really bullish market in 2016, when things were going crazy, we had as little as 7,700 listings. We're almost at that level of the bullish market. So prices haven't dropped because we haven't seen the inventory. But you're going to see the inventory come on, and it's going to come on June 1st. Like, it's going to start coming on. We've seen an uptick. We've seen an uptick already in inventory. We've also seen a slight uptick in sales. Let me explain to you something. In 2016, the government came out with a foreign national tax. Why? Because the market was crazy and they wanted to slow the market down. So they came out with a 15% foreign national tax. That wasn't good enough. They raised it to 20%. They brought out a vacant home tax in Vancouver, a speculative tax for the province. They brought out an education tax. They raised the property transfer tax. They brought out the stress test. All of these things were designed to slow down the market, and they did. They wanted to make houses affordable. So fast forward to July of 2019, when the assessments were done. That was the low of the market. The spring market, if you remember, and I got quoted for this, 10,000 realtors on June 1st had not made one sale. 10,000 hadn't made a sale. All of a sudden, July hits and it's momentum. And we really started to see multiple offers. We started to see the market get back to normal, or to better than normal. Why? Because of pent-up demand. If you want to bring in tax policies to make housing more affordable, that doesn't work in the long term. It's a short-term solution. We fought for almost a whole year about the stress test. We got it tweaked a little bit, and then they took it away when COVID-19 hit. There is talk, the CMHC chair, who's in his final year, he's trying to make press for himself. He talked about dramatic drops in the real estate prices, and he talked about raising the minimum down payment from 5% to 10%, but he doesn't necessarily have the backing of the government. So it's his final year. He's trying to make noise. Sometimes we are our worst enemy because we sensationalize when it's really, really slow. And right now, we need to send a message that we're open for business. And I think that message is kids are going to go back to school June 1st. I think that in the first, maybe the second week of June, I'm just guessing, but I'm saying that probably by June 6th and 7th, open houses will be back. It sends a message that real estate is back. Sales statistically are going to be a little bit better than April. May is going to be a little bit better, and I think June's going to be a little bit better than May. Again, it's momentum, and I think you're going to see both pent-up demand for buying and pent-up demand for selling. And I think we're going to get really busy.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. Like the past couple of weeks, I know our team, like yesterday, we got 3 accepted offers or something ridiculous, and like 5 listings coming out. It's really we're starting to notice it big time. People are coming out of the woods when it relates to actually buying and selling. You mentioned that CMHC thing, and that's something that I've gotten tons of questions on. I've had a few clients reach out to me on as well. And for those of you that don't know, he brought it up. It's some of these guys are expecting between 18 to 20% market correction on pricing because they're saying up to 1 in 5 mortgages are getting deferred and they won't be able to pay, and so on and so forth. So it is creating a little bit of a stir. But a couple of people that I had a chance to speak with in the last week, they're talking about how the rental, even though right now the province has pretty much legalized you not having to pay your rent right now until it's all up, right? And there's apparently less than a 1% delinquency on rent. And generally speaking, the renters have a lower income bracket than the owners, right? So it sounds like you agree that in the fact that that's probably very, very worst case scenario. Do you think though that, is that something that you're looking to see in September when deferments stop? Is that going to be a judgment of what's going to happen with our market?
So here Evan Siddell had to retweet, and he retweeted my tweet storm to clarify a few things regarding CMHC's posture. First, we expect prices to fall 9% on average if we have a prompt post-COVID recovery. And then he goes on to say worst case resulted in 18%. Now, that's what the media picked up on, was that 18%. So now he's backpedaling and he's saying, okay, you know what? We're only predicting 9% now. Guess what? Vancouver is always the exception to the rule. Things that might happen in other cities don't happen. got an amazing place here to live. People want to live here. Things are happening right now in Hong Kong that may cause some of them to come back. We don't have record construction. In 2018, we had 48,000 new construction starts. Every year, 40,000 people come here. So 2018 was a little bit overwhelming. Those are now completing or getting close to finishing now. So there might be some inventory, but buildings stop. People have scaled back their projects. And so there's not new construction. So in 3 years, you're going to see another shortage. It's the supply and demand. 4,000 condo listings right now. Last year we were at 5,000. So the supply is actually short. I know I've seen projections that there's 8,000 units that are unsold that might be coming on, but they're not on now. So if you're looking to selling, now is a good time to be selling. If you're looking at buying, we know these are historically low interest rates. We know that the market's a little slower, so you don't have as much competition. But you don't want to get caught buying when there's pent-up demand, and then you have to make an offer without any subjects. So it's a great time to be a buyer. It's a great time to be a seller.
Yeah, I agree. It's with these ifs, ands, or but markets where we can't really predict the future or not. It's a good thing, and I always tell my clients, and I'm sure you're in the same boat with this. If you buy and sell in the exact same time, there's really little or no risk associated with it in the long term. Okay, so we got your opinion on that, which is fantastic. What are your predictions, I guess, on the state of our industry? So you kind of came on right after we had that whole debacle on, no more double lending, no more, all these different rule changes. Right now we got web forms that I swear I want to jump off a bridge every time I use. Where do you see our BC real estate or Greater Vancouver real estate community going in the next couple of years? Like, is there any other major transformations or things getting tighter? If you could add to that, that'd be fantastic.
You mean after they turned our industry upside down, will there be more changes?
Exactly.
One thing is that change is the new constant. So things are going to keep changing. Geez, I think one thing that hurts us is our own mindset. And I read, and Tony Joe and me will not agree on this, but I can use his name because he's given me permission. He won't show a property unless they go get a realtor. So let me tell you, this is a long weekend. I've got a new house that's listed, and I don't use a lot of lock boxes, but I had a lock box on this one because the owner thought it was really good to have a lock box. I had an accepted offer. I had an inspection booked, and a buyer called me, and the buyer said, "You know what, Phil, your listing over there on Broadway, we'd like to take a look at it." Well, I'm thinking to myself, I have an accepted offer. It's a long weekend. The first thing I ask is, do you have a realtor? And they go, "No, we don't have a realtor. We're just curious. I mean, we haven't sold yet. We'd have to sell. And we don't have a real estate agent, but we just want to look at it." Now, I could have taken the approach of saying, okay, you know what, go get a realtor. It's on Lockbox and go look at it. But you know what? I'm keeping positive. First of all, I'm going to show them the property and hope that they might want to buy something else. Or if they do want to buy it, I'm going to refer it out. So I'm going to get a referral. I take them and I show them the property, and they love it. And they go, "We really love this house, but we've got to sell first. Can you give us an evaluation?" I can give you an evaluation as a no agency, just as information only. And then we can see what happens with the offer that's pending. I give them an evaluation. I remain impartial. I'm not their agent. They're interested in one of my listings. I'm going, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to refer out the listing. I'm going to have to refer them out as a buyer. Guess what happens? The listing sells. My listing firms up. And now I'm going, ooh. And they're grateful that I spent time with them. And they said, "Phil, you know what? I understand that house sold, but we want to keep looking. And in the meantime, can you list our house?" So I got a simple call that didn't sound that great. I sold them a $2.6 million house in Port Moody. I sold their $1.6 million house in Burnaby, and now they're calling me to buy a condo for their daughter. All from one sign call, one floor call, and not referring them out. Like, I don't mind showing people a listing, even if they don't have an agent. I might end up working with them for other properties. I think that we hurt ourselves concerned about the rules, not understanding that this is a people business. You still need to make those personal connections. You need to know the rules and follow the guidelines. It might have been a little tougher for me if I had to refer them out. Like, wow, there goes a listing, there goes a sale. I'd refer them out to Sean. There he goes again. But I stayed positive, and I picked them up as buyers, and I got ends that if I had told them, you know what, Mr. Jones, the house is vacant, it's on lockbox, go find yourself a realtor, and he'll show it to you. If I took that approach, I would have lost 3 ends. And I think that we are our own worst enemies. We still can sell real estate. We still got to connect with people. We can still talk to people. We just got to know the rules.
And I feel too, Adam mentions this all the time too, and I think we had a conversation about this before. But really, it's having common sense, right? If you're actually caring about your clients more than your commission checks, right, you're going to do the right thing, right? So everything that you did in this particular transaction that you're talking about, you're doing the right thing on everybody's behalf. You know what I mean? You're trying to put a deal together for your seller if that was possible. If it came to that point, you would have did it within the rules and sent it out. But at the same time, those clients called you and wanted to talk to you. So the fact that you're actually helping them out, I find it personally a disservice to be like, you want to use me, but go talk to that guy. And that's not good service either, right? And Adam always says this thing, and it's maybe right or wrong, but you never get in trouble if your client's happy. You know? So, and I feel like that's probably tried, tested, and true in a lot of cases.
I mean, I spent most of 2018 as the president with Mr. Noseworthy, trying to educate our regulator on the way real estate works. We won some small wins. The double recusal was going to be a disaster if you had to walk away from both the listing and the buyer. We got over that. We have conflict of interest forms, and you got a great managing broker, you got someone to lean on, we can get through this. We have shown that we're resilient. We are getting through this. We're turning our reputation around. And the public we're starting to make gains as far as trust. So the no double ending, I love the rule. I just think it's better for our industry. It's better for all of us as in our reputation. Have I done a no agency? No, I haven't. I'm scared to do a no agency, unless it was Mr. Boza, because he knows what he's doing. But I do refer it out. I refer out some of my sales. I get some of them back. I was double ending or a limited dual agency. I was doing about 11 out of 110 listings. So it's a little bit less than 10%, which is higher than the national average, because the national average was only about 5%. But those 10 ends that I'm not getting, I'm referring, so I'm getting half back, and I'm doing deals for other people.
It ends up balancing itself out almost at the end of the day, right? Yeah, and I feel like the idea of it was a good idea. Maybe the implementation by the government was a little bit off, but it is what it is. We move forward. All right, so a couple other questions. So if you were to, let's say, have something that defines you. So what differentiates you from your competition? So if I were to be wanting to list my house, why would I choose Phil over somebody else?
So I think that you're going to find that I don't communicate. I try to really connect on a different level, and I try to get to know Sean Zuber. Like, I'm going to try to get to know my clients. Doris is amazing. My wife's amazing because she develops this amazing friendship with the clients. There's something to be said about a male-female team. It's worked out really well, and Canadian and Asian worked out really well. But I think that you're going to find that I try to connect at a higher level. And then the thing is that I've done this a long time. So I portray that I'm going to do whatever's in the best interest of the client. I don't need to make a sale. I don't put pressure on my people. What I like to do is I like to give them as much information as I have to make an informed decision or a fact-based decision. One thing, when we work with the youth at risk that I work with, the book that we built a camp on is a book called The 4 Agreements. If you follow these 4 agreements, you're going to be successful in real estate. And one of them is being impeccable with your word. And I find that realtors are not always impeccable with their word. Always do your best. There's another agreement. So if you're committed to your client and you're going to give them 100%, they're going to see that. But, being on time, dressing for success, when you say you're going to do something, you got to do it. You got to do the follow-up. The problem is so many realtors overpromise and underachieve. And I like to underpromise and overachieve. And so they're like, wow, I didn't know you were going to do all this stuff. So I think that's my main motto, that you'll find that Phil Moore and Doris G, they underpromise and overachieve. We go the extra step.
Yeah, and I can see you guys have worked so well, which is amazing, because at the end of the day, I know a lot of husband and wife relationships are pretty tough ones too to manage through work. So I'm guessing there's been some PSI moments in there for sure.
There's no stability.
Exactly.
It is work.
All right, so I guess the last question that I'm going to wrap up here, I've had actually 2 more questions here. First one, I'll go with somebody that asked, is this a good time to invest in a townhouse project? So we have a couple of realtors that are looking at investing in different projects that are probably going to complete or maybe come to sale in the next couple of years. Would you put your money into that right now?
Especially a townhouse. The townhouse market, we don't have enough townhouses. We've got a lot of condos, but we have a short supply, and that's a lifestyle. Here's my philosophy that started back in 1989, 1990. We don't have a pension, okay? My goal was to buy 1 property every year. Whether it's a good time or a bad time, I bought in 94, I bought in 97, I bought in 2008, 2009. I buy properties and rent them out, okay? Right now, if I followed my own philosophy, I'd have 31 rental properties. Well, I have 39. And I bought properties that, at the time I'm going, maybe I shouldn't have bought that. Here's another thing. I think that this is such a good time to buy that if you don't want to buy it, I will. And guess what? I ended up buying because I had to prove my clients right. Another time, he was a Vancouver policeman, actually, and he wanted to buy a new house. I listed his house at 6888 Dow. And I said to the guy, I said, listen, we've got multiple offers on my listings. If you want this house, we can buy it. And we're going to have a 4-month closing. What if you can't sell my house? Don't worry about it. If I can't sell your house, I'll buy it. Well, if you drive by 6888 Dow, I've owned it now for about 25 years. So sometimes I've had to buy the listings when I guaranteed a subject to the sale. I'm bullish on real estate. I always think it's not a bad time to buy. I like pre-sales. I've done really well with pre-sales because you're putting a smaller deposit and you're paying in 2 or 3 years. I like to be early in the pre-sale business. I don't like to be when there's pent-up demand and the developers raised the price already. But I really like a townhouse idea because there's just a shortage of townhouses. And you've got to be thinking real estate as a long-term hold. I can remember, one project I had a little tough time closing on. And at the time, it was a good deal when I bought the pre-sale. And then it wasn't looking so good. And I had to put some extra money in to close. And that's 1420 West Georgia. I bought that pre-sale for $179,000. That's Cole Harbor. Today, it's worth $640,000. What was I sweating over? So again, I look at real estate as a long-term hold, and I love it.
And to that point, and I hope you don't get mad at me for saying this because I know we've had this conversation, so it might be a little bit private, but at the end of the day, you've accumulated some massive wealth. I mean, at the end of the day, 39 places, a lot of those properties, 500 million plus equity in there. I know we had a conversation, like don't have to get out of bed and you can make almost $2,000 a day just from the money that you've accumulated in these properties. What makes you get out of bed? First of all, you're doing CREA, you're doing the board. What's your daily ritual like? Why don't you just, I'm just being honest here, why don't you just retire? You're a multimillionaire, right? You have a Ferrari, Lamborghini, and all these things, right? What continues to push you forward? Like,
because what I do is I like dealing with people. I like what I do, and I do it because I enjoy it. I think that all of us parents want to set up our kids for success. So that was important. I've got a son who's 24. It was really neat having Phil Moore, Doris G, and Brandon G Moore, all as individuals as the President's Club. So I've set him up. He's in the President's Club. I've got a daughter that just came back from Qatar, Doha, in the Middle East, where she was performing for Cirque du Soleil. She's doing fantastic. You want to set your kids up for success, but then it comes down to more than that. It's what are you going to do for your community? What are you going to do for your society? And that's why I helped create a nonprofit. I just got an email. We're probably about 3 weeks away from making it a registered charity. I sit on the board of this nonprofit as the vice president. I have a Zoom call with 60 kids every Wednesday that are underprivileged, that have drug and alcohol and self-harm issues. Some of them slash their wrists and their arms. They're underprivileged youth. You know who we had speak? We had Lennox Lewis Zoom in from London, England, to speak to the youth at risk. It's just amazing with Zoom how we can connect with these kids, and it's really what drives you, and that is giving back. The first 20 years of real estate, just leave me alone. I just want to make money. And then I got a little bit of a fever of getting back. And really, at the end of the day, is what will Sean Zuber be remembered for? What will your legacy be? The other thing is, I've journaled. I found myself in the middle of California on a life success course, all by myself, and I wasn't allowed to leave my tent more than 10 feet away. All I had was water. And I was there for 46 hours journaling my vision for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and 20 years. And actually, I got the book here. I haven't dared open it up, but in October of this year, October of 2020, and I have to open it up and read what I wrote 5 years previous to see if I'm accountable to myself, if I'm working on that vision. But really, it's about giving back. It's what gives you pleasure. So that's what gets me up in the morning. Hey, this call, I was excited. Obviously I love talking to you guys. I love sharing my story. And I love learning and growing. Each day is new lessons to be learned. I've never stopped learning.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Phil. I've taken you into overtime now. I really appreciate your time. Everybody here at Stonehaus and all of our guests on board, I'm sure have learned a lot. It's an amazing story. Just so you guys know, don't be scared to reach out to Phil. He's an amazing guy. He's a guy that will help you with whatever you need in the long run, even if he doesn't know you yet. So please do that if you have any questions whatsoever. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of this Stonehaus Summit series. It's been an amazing success. We are going to start a series next month as well, twice a month. Phil, thank you so much for being the last and best. I really appreciate it. And everybody else, have a fantastic day. Take care.